Okay, so can you tell us sort of about Lust for Love, sort of where it came from and how it sort of came into actually being a film?
Uh, well, I'd been living in LA for for a few years, writing lots of screenplays, and um, I decided that I'd making short films, and I'd made the Remains music video, and I decided that I was ready to make a feature, and I've been I was writing another script that I intended to be the first feature that I make, um, and I sort of got blocked on that. And whilst I was blocked on that, I went to writing an older idea I'd had and thought about, which was Lust for Love, and that came quite easily. So I wrote that quite quickly. I was in Vietnam at the time actually. I went there for 6 weeks to write the first draft of the script for the movie that I was going to make, whatever it was going to be, and it ended up being Lust for Love.
Okay, did you draw on any personal experiences for that, or is it just a screenplay that you had in mind?
Uh, my brother and my good friend used to have a lot more success with girls than I did, and there came a point where I said that that didn't make sense. So um, I was more shy than them, but I forced myself to not be as shy, to, and it led to a lot of awkward circumstances, and that's sort of a similar journey to
So
what Asta has in the movie.
you were Aster, essentially.
Well, I wouldn't like to say that, but uh, you know, I have had some similar experiences, and obviously Fran's character likes birding, and that I'm not a birder, but Jack Wilson, one of the producers, he's a birder. So I learned about birding through him, and we went downtown and saw those birds the year before we shot it, just for something to do, and then we decided to put that in the movie. And I definitely pull different things from different things I've experienced. Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. No, we can't help but notice that there are quite a few Whedonverse actors in the mix. Dollhouse specifically. We'd love to hear about your involvement with that. We know you mentioned Remains. Just sort of about your casting process and your relationship with them.
Well, I met the Dollhouse cast through Deachin, who I've known a long time, and I just, when we were casting the movie, we just cast our friends, and I guess we hadn't been in LA that long, and obviously, the Dollhouse cast were good friends that we liked, and all great actors. So we cast a few of them, and we also cast a number of Australian actors who we liked and knew as well. In my mind, it's a mix of Dollhouse actors and Australian actors, because they're the main ones I know. But people just sort of see it as just the Whedon actors. But of course, Josh casts good actors. Almost every actor he casts knows how to give a really genuine performance.
Now, how about the non-Whedon actors? Did you know them as well, or how were they sort of brought into this project?
Bo Garrett was a friend of Fran's, and that role took a little longer to cast. And then Kareem Saleh, the French Lebanese actor, he's a very good friend of Deachin's and mine, and I just wanted to have him in there. And he's always funny in real life anyway. He always gets cast in all these serious roles. But I think if people realise how funny he is, his career might really take off. And then there's, my sister's in the movie. She has a scene there. And Caitlin Stacey, who I've known for years as well. And, she's a wonderful natural actress. So it's made sense to cast her.
Okay. Now, was it obvious to you on set who had worked together before versus who hadn't, or did they all just kind of fall into place?
To be honest, everybody knew everybody on set before. I guess except for Bo, who was new, but I don't know. I think Bo gets on with people easily. She has a lot of fun on set, and So it was good times on set, for sure.
Now, were these specific actors always who you had in mind to play these roles, or did you ever have maybe different actors in mind, or possibly these same actors just playing different characters?
Well, when I wrote the script, a little bit sometimes I had people in mind, but really I sort of cast it with Deachin, and you know, it also depends on schedule. Marissa was, you know, Marissa's role was going to be bigger, but she was sick at the time, so I had to change to a smaller role. And you know, I mean, Marissa doesn't act that much because she's always writing, but I'm a huge fan of her acting. She's, you know, so sometimes, you know, when you watch a movie, you can't always tell what people are like to work with, because, you know, maybe the performance has been brought out in the edit. But there are certain actors, and there's a lot of them in Lust for Love, where every take is great and you can use. And you know, Marissa's one of them, even though, you know, she's not seen as often.
Okay, now you said Marissa was sick. Is that why her voice is kind of missing in the movie? Is that why that played in?
No, that was just I don't know. When I was writing that scene, I just wanted to have a different character. I thought that might be amusing, and you know, she played it well. It was hard for the sound mix, but I think it worked.
Okay, now, Dollhouse fans, of course, you know, this is largely Dollhouse cast, but they'll get to see some of these actors sort of playing characters that are very sort of polar opposite of the characters that they played on Dollhouse. Was that, you know, something that you had in mind, like a conscious decision, or was it sort of after the fact you look back and realize that everybody was just playing completely new characters?
Well, I know a lot of actors, and I just think actors get sort of pigeonholed in different areas. But if you know, because they're known professionally and for the work that they do, but if you know them socially, then you know what you're capable of. You know, I mean, I'm not sure if Enver, for example, has had many significant comedic roles, but he loves comedy, makes little comedy things himself, and he's a huge talent. And so, you know, it's just, you know, and it's, I just knew these actors were capable of doing different stuff, for sure.
Okay. Now, a name like Lust for Love kind of leaves something to your imagination to play with, but we couldn't help noticing there was a lack of nudity, which is sort of prevalent in indie-type films. Was that, you know, a conscious decision on where that line was, or?
I mean, I love nudity in films if it's in the right context, but I think, you know, this is... I'm not sure if nudity would have added to this movie. I don't think it sort of would fit with the sensibility. And also, when you're doing a tiny movie like this, you know, these actors took a risk in being in a, you know, I'm a first-time director. Our budget was tiny, you know, and so they took a risk being in this movie. And so to extend that risk to also say, oh yes, and we want nudity, I mean, that would have been too much to ask, but it wouldn't have been appropriate for the movie anyway.
Okay, now one of the big scenes in the movie takes place at what we assume is a Halloween party, given all the costumes. Now, how did you just sort of decide on these particular costumes? Was it a theme that you had in mind, or did you just sort of pull things out of a closet?
Asta's dog collar costume was one I wore 2 Halloweens before we shot. I was late to a Halloween party, didn't have a costume, and saw an old lampshade, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I can use it as a wizard hat. And then I realised that it would work better as a dog collar, and so I put on my brown shirt, which Fran also wears in the movie, and Deachin had that sort of other brown thing that he was wearing.